Hey guys, wow, it's been 2 years since the last time anyone got a chance to go see a Marvel movie in theaters with Spider-Man Far From Home, but we have arrived once again. Phase 4 has hit theaters with Black Widow, released at long last, and I just got back from seeing it, and I figured I'd talk about it for a little bit. This is R-rated. We're gonna talk about the movie. Oh boy. I wish that this movie had come out sooner. Not because, I've been dying for the MCU to come back, which I have. I've been really excited about where things were going to go after Endgame. But because I think the long stretch between Endgame and Far From Home and Black Widow did more harm than good as far as how this movie was received by me, and I expect it's going to be received by a lot of other folks. This is going to be an interesting review. It's all very off the cuff. This is not scripted. I've got some notes, but we're just going to kind of roll with it here. The biggest problem I think that I've got with this movie is the pacing is all over the place. If you go to see this movie, you're going to notice that there are points where it just kind of feels like someone's just kind of got their foot lightly just resting on the gas, and then they'll slam it down and then pull it off again. We have a very extended slow sequence at the beginning that I liked as kind of a cold open to everything. And then we suddenly get a very rapid montage to go with our opening credits, something that rarely ever happens in an MCU movie. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies do really stylistic opening credits. We also had The Incredible Hulk, which did kind of a background of the character, essentially sort of giving you the info on how, the events of the previous Hulk movie more or less kind of happened. So we don't have to worry about that. We're moving on past it. This movie has an opening montage set to credits as well, or rather credits set to an opening montage, which itself is set to this really weird version of Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is odd. It's very strange to hear someone softly singing, "I feel stupid and contagious." I'm like, okay. All right. Yeah, the opening montage kind of blows through all of the Red Room stuff. It just kind of gives you a visual montage of everything that's going through the Red Room. And I'm wondering, did they not want to show any of, what the Red Room was all about? We know, we've heard details about it. We've heard about the Red Room. But we literally see less of the inner workings of the Red Room in this movie than we did in Age of Ultron, when we see Natasha's, weird, twisted memory sort of thing that Wanda does to her. But yeah, it was really light on details of the Red Room. That opening montage also, something about the look of it, it feels like a TV opening sequence, which is to refer to the production quality of it, which is odd because they play a good chunk of that song. It feels like most of that song. And opening credits nowadays, unless you're doing something really significant with them, like you're setting an entire scene to opening credits, nowadays the taste with opening credits seems to be you really want to keep it to a minute or less, preferably 30 seconds is what you want for opening credits if you're going to do them in a full-length feature film. But yeah, we have a really slow opening scene. We have our montage. Then we have a character that shows up who immediately has their status quo completely inverted. And then we have another character show up who suddenly just is on a mission to do a thing. And then we're back to Natasha. And all of that, and I'm being vague for now, but all of that happens in the span of roughly 3 minutes. It's incredibly fast. And all of a sudden, a bunch of characters are now in motion. And by the end of the next scene, Yelena, who is the character from the very first scene, after the opening credits, is already kind of reaching out and making contact and stuff. It's incredibly fast how all of this stuff is going. and we get these really long we essentially have a combination of really long, awkward dialogue scenes that, like, they don't really land as well as I would like. And then you've got sudden bursts into action. Like, it's really rapid. There's not a lot of, like, all right, here we go. We're getting ready, and then we're fighting. Like, it's very, like, on and off. Like, very binary kind of feel on the pacing and the tone. There's a very long scene where Natasha is right there with the bad guy that she's there to kill, and she spends an inordinate amount of time not even trying to kill him. And I say not trying to because there's an element at play that prevents her from doing it, but she doesn't even attempt it for like a couple minutes of really agonizing. Like, he's literally standing in front of her and she does nothing, and she's the ultra spy. So it's just very odd the way that they kind of worked with that, I think. I feel like the production itself was also really kind of clunky. The CGI was really inconsistent. There were a handful of moments with really rubbery CGI people, and there were some green screen and composite shots that just did not work at all. There's a there's a point where Yelena goes to stick a staff into the turbine of like a Quinjet style, VTOL vehicle, and you get these close-ups of Natasha against a green screen, and then Yelena against a green screen, and then Natasha against a green screen, and then Yelena as she stabs into the thing, and the explosion happens, and you just kind of like limbs just kind of gingerbread man outward as she just kind of whoop, like flies out of the shot. And it's like, what am I watching? The explosions in particular looked really bad in this, which is saying something because there were some points that were like Michael Bay levels of indulgent explosion sequences. It was kind of a lot. There's also like, I mean, this is kind of a minor one, but it's like such an obvious thing that bothers me when people do this. But like, they do the magic camera where, so Natasha's got a moment where she's on the run. This takes place between Civil War and Infinity War, and General Ross is after her and has got a bunch of men and all that. And she looks at her phone and she's got security footage of his vehicles and then his dudes coming in. Except by security footage, I mean it's shots that look like they were filmed for scenes for the movie. They don't feel like security shots. They don't feel like they're from a security camera. They don't feel like they're from a drone. They feel like they're from the movie Black Widow as presented through Black Widow's phone. Taskmaster is a major player in this and also watches footage in a similar way. It was very strange. There was like one shot that didn't look like that, but all the rest did. So that was kind of weird. The movie really wants to highlight the theme of family, like a found family kind of situation, except it's this really like mangled metaphorical version of this where, so Natasha at the beginning, Natasha and Yelena are not actually sisters. They're kind of being watched over, let's say, by the two parent characters, and eventually things happen. Yelena's ultimately taken to the Red Room, and this is, I guess, after Natasha's already been to the Red Room as they were kids. But they don't see each other again for decades. They don't see each other again until the events of this movie. So all four of these characters, none of whom were actually related in the first place or married for the parents or anything, like, they keep bickering like family does, which is like cute-ish in its own way, but like some of the characters keep insisting like, we're a family, and it's like, you were being used and it wasn't real. And like, Yelena insists that it was real. She's like, no, it was real to me. It was the best time of my life, and it's just fake. Oh, fine, all right, it's just fake. And it's like, yes, it was all fake. And like, even Alexei, the father character, winds up saying it's like, it was so boring. It was just so dull. No offense, but it was boring. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here? But like the movie really wants you to believe that like, but that they can come together as a family nonetheless, which is going to be real awkward after Endgame is over and Natasha's dead. Whoops. There's also like, there's a lot of just scene breaking bickering. There's a lot of like, so the MCU gets kind of has a reputation at this point for quips, a lot of quippy dialogue. It's been less intense in the post Joss Whedon world when Marcus and McFeely were at the reins for like the second half of the MCU. But this one goes back into it. The first couple scenes with Natasha and Yelena, they are bickering pretty much constantly. Just about every shot that you see them together, they're arguing about something. And it's fine at first, but it really starts to get in the way where like they're actively slowing down what they're doing in order to make sure they can bicker. Like there's literally a point where they're trying to break Alexei out of some kind of Russian Siberian prison, and Natasha's like on this bridge, this like catwalk over the prison, and Yelena had messed up or whatever, and Natasha goes to yell at her, but you see Natasha literally just stops everything. It's like, really? Oh, what are you? And like Yelena's in the chopper like, oh, sorry. But you can see in this huge circle around that there are just guards with guns doing nothing. And it's not the only time this happens. There's a scene near the end where Natasha's being attacked by around a dozen people, and half of them are just kind of like idle animation, just idling, waiting for, oh, well, here we go, punch time. And it's just like, I don't know. The choreography was really rough. This is something we saw in Loki also in the scene in the Timekeeper's chamber, where the choreography just suddenly just falls apart, and I don't really know what's going on there. But no, I'm not going to pretend to have the skills of a director of a $200 million movie or anything, but I feel like if you don't have really active choreography for everyone in the shot, you should find a reason to not have it be shot like that and find a different way to shoot it. Maybe that's just me. So as for the cast of the movie, we kind of have three main characters. We have Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff. She's fine. I wouldn't call it her best work, but it's certainly pretty far from her worst. I feel like she was kind of getting sidelined a lot in her own movie. There were a lot of sections where it kind of felt like she was getting either ignored or, shoved off to the side so other characters could get some spotlight. She is not the one who is... She doesn't kill the main bad guy, ? We're going to get to the villains in a second, but like... She feels way less pivotal to her own movie, which is a thing. And maybe that's because this movie is less a Natasha Romanoff movie and more of a sideways sort of pilot for the Florence Pugh character, Yelena. Yelena Belova, I think. It felt like a bit of an introduction, like an origin-ish story for her. Like it's kind of a baton pass sort of moment for these two characters. She felt a bit like a blank slate at first, which maybe is kind of part of the point of her character at the beginning. But she did start to evolve. She did start to loosen up a little bit. She grew on me a bit at the end. There's a lot of work to be done, though, because she kind of does feel like early days Natasha Romanoff, which... I don't love the idea of us having to like have another Black Widow character soften up a bunch. Speaking of which, Natasha Romanoff willingly goes by the alias Black Widow, and all of the women that are trapped in this system with the Red Room are referred to as widows. Why is she using the alias that would immediately remind her of this infinite amount of physical, emotional, psychological trauma that she endured? I cannot fathom why she would like... I don't know. That seems like such a strange thing in hindsight. So we have Natasha, we have Yelena. They're both fine. I'd say their chemistry is okay. Their chemistry is fine for two sisters that are bickering. I mean, they're not biological sisters, so they don't have to look alike, but they do okay there. The third main character would be Alexei Shostakov. I'm going to mispronounce it, but the Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, who is a fucking delight, and not even maybe, he's my favorite character in this movie by a long shot. He's like the one consistently enjoyable character the entire time. I can't think of a single scene he was in where I was like, oh no, now what? He was great. David Harbour is a joy. I hope they find a reason to bring him back in a future thing. He plays the Red Guardian, who's this super washed up Soviet super soldier. So I guess the Soviets were also messing around with super soldier serums while Cap was in the ice. And he had been like their guy for a while, but he was put in prison as soon as Natasha and Yelena were taken in to the Red Room, and he's only let out as we enter the movie again. But he was great. Gold star for David Harbour. Gold star for you. Or a white star on his chest right there on his very Captain America inspired outfit. Similar in some ways to the Captain America inspired shield worn by the Taskmaster, who is incredibly wasted as a character in this movie. This movie went to great lengths in its advertisement to market the villain as Taskmaster. Taskmaster is not only not the main villain, and at this point, assume we're going into spoilers. This is probably the point to detach if you're not interested in spoilers. But so Taskmaster is essentially just the dragon is the trope, but basically the highest ranking goon of the actual bad guy of the movie. And it is revealed later that it's it's the disfigured daughter of a man named Dreykov. This is actually a callback to the Avengers, where Loki taunts Black Widow for something involving Dreykov's daughter. We actually find out what that is, and it's that she was trying to kill Dreykov and had like an explosive planted on his daughter, so that when she saw the daughter going to see him after school one day, it would kill Dreykov. Doesn't kill Dreykov or even seem to harm him, and Antonia, the daughter, is incredibly disfigured, and it is a complete waste of the Taskmaster character. I think she gets one line at the end. And it's not a character who is able to memorize all these different fighting moves. It's a character that wears a visor that does it all for her. So if you've ever seen DOA Dead or Alive, it's exactly like the special sunglasses. So it's been done. DOA got there first. I wonder if there's any actors that were in both of those movies. Was it Eric Richards? It was the big bad guy in that one. I can't think of any of the actors that were likely to be in both. But yeah, so not only wasted as a character, but Taskmaster's played by Olga Kurylenko, who you might recognize as the Bond girl Camille from Quantum of Solace, who also felt kind of underutilized for most of that movie. And here, she is just absolutely wasted as an actor. Like, she's a pretty solid actor, and it just felt like they didn't do anything with her. The big crazy reveal is that Taskmaster is a woman, and it's only a surprise because the armor that Taskmaster wears is very stereotypically male. It has pecs on it, so that's a thing that they did, I guess. It was very odd. I don't know how I feel about this. Maybe she's not dead at the end. She gets taken by a bunch of freed widows. Maybe she'll turn up as a Dark Avenger later. More to talk on that in a second. And the last character, you might have noticed that I said there were three main characters: Natasha, Yelena, and Alexei. Because Taskmaster is a waste. Milena Vostokov, played by Rachel Weisz, was just put me to sleep. I love The Mummy. I feel negative excited about Rachel Weisz's performance in this movie compared to positive excited for The Mummy. That's how I felt about this. She was so stone-faced, and even when she was playing an emotional version of herself, I felt nothing. And I don't think I entirely blame that on Rachel Weisz. I feel like that's more of a directing thing. I don't know, or a writing thing. It could be a combination of all three, but I just couldn't give less of a shit about Milena's character. It really didn't do anything for me. And then there's Dreykov, played by Ray Winstone, who is, I think, without question, the worst villain in MCU history. The worst. That's a hell of a bar. He is worse than the Abomination, because the Abomination has a real character arc. It's not a great one, but it's a character arc, and you can follow it. Worse than Malekith, who at least is present throughout the movie. Dreykov gets name dropped like 50,000 times and then shows up basically in the last hour. And his thing is that he's got what's called a pheromone lock on these widows, such that if they can smell him, they can't kill him. Which, what? That's got to be the most bizarre. If Natasha showed up with a fucking cold, she could have killed him. A little congestion, some allergies. What if she just reached into her pocket, pulled out a clam, and just opened it up, cracked it, and went, "Ah, there we go. Oh, now I'm all swollen up and just like bee sting faced and ready to take you on." And like the movie has like, I'm so annoyed because like the solution they come up with to this problem is clever enough, I guess. Frankly, the real answer would have been breathe out of your mouth. Everybody can breathe through their mouth if they need to. If something is smelly, you just breathe out of your mouth. You don't breathe out of your nose, and then you're fine. So the solution is to sever the nerve, the olfactory nerve, I think. Essentially what sends smell signals to your brain from your nose. And it's so there's a point where she starts mocking him, basically belittling him, which is fair. He is like king of the weird incel villains. He literally states that he's recycling trash and he's getting rid of something the world has too many of. Girls. I'm not joking. You think I'm joking. That's straight up actually what he says. It's so fucking weird. Like, I laughed. The only other thing I laughed at more was when they arrive at the Red Room, which is an air fortress that hovers in the clouds. What? And then it just goes Red Room in their giant location font they've been using since like Endgame or whatever. And I laughed out loud in the theater because like, yeah, we know. So she belittles him to convince him to start beating her up. I was kind of expecting that since she couldn't actively kill him, she was going to cause him to kill himself accidentally through some means by this. But no, the apparent answer was she was going to belittle him until he freaked out and punched her a bunch to get him to break her nose and sever the thing. Which is like, okay, fine, that works. And so when he doesn't quite get there all the way, she belittles him again, like, guess you weren't all that strong. I'm gonna have to do this myself. And she slams her fucking face on his desk. Like, just full force, boom. And which I went, oh, in my seat. Like, that was just a lot very sudden. Like, I kind of figured it was going to happen, but like, fuck, that was a lot. Her face would be pretty fucking fucked up if she slammed it so hard that she shattered her nose and severed her olfactory nerve. Her face would be a fucking mess. And would be just gushing blood. And no, they just kind of have the one little boop, the one little whoopie doop boop boop, a little bit of blood, Hollywood bloody nose. She eventually later, I guess, pops it all back into place. But there's no way that's gonna unsever that nerve. So It's a shame she doesn't get to enjoy the lovely smell of peanut butter when she's having the sandwich that she threatens to throw at Steve, and then Scott eats. Bummer. Anyway, yeah. Cool solution to one of the stupidest obstacles I've ever heard of in anything. I would have believed. So the idea is that sometime after Natasha was in the Red Room, other widows were chemically altered. Essentially, they were chemically like messed with to force them into compliance. I would have believed it if he was like, oh, well, you know, we didn't start all of them after you left. Like, the very first one we developed while you were here was that you can't kill me. No, instead it's pheromone lock, which I guess maybe is about the same thing, but sounds a lot stupider. I don't know. I don't know. Also, the Taskmaster stuff is like way less impressive than I was expecting it to be. Because if you know anything about the Taskmaster, the idea is that he, in the comics, he's male. In the comics, he memorizes how all of the different Avengers fight and is able to replicate and mimic those movements and those actions. And essentially, people refer to it as fighting a mirror, because you're fighting yourself, you're fighting other people that you know. In this, he's mostly just a copy of Captain America. He does a little claw thing from Black Panther, but I don't think he actually uses the claws. So that's a weird little shot. Or sorry, she. So she uses the claws, and that's kind of a weird shot. She uses an arrow, a bow and arrow that is very much Hawkeye style, but that does mean that they had to develop trick arrows. So that's a whole thing there too. And there's one more. There's like a wrist blade thing. Like it looks like Deadpool from the X-Men movies. Like the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie with the little shunk blade. I don't know what that was supposed to be. And then there's just a normal sword at one point. It's like, what are these? Why are we going with these other weapons that have nothing to do with the Avengers? It's so weird. Apparently, she moves like Spider-Man and does poses like Iron Man, and there's other stuff, but it's like, that's not... The coolest thing they did with Taskmaster's mimicry is they redid the knife fight sequence from Winter Soldier, like with the little like block, throw, flip, the knife play stuff they do near the bridge in Winter Soldier. They kind of replicate that. Speaking of replicating Winter Soldier, this whole plot feels like it's basically just Winter Soldier again, but not Hydra. And in fact, they even bring up that Hydra was working on the Winter Soldier, and the Red Room essentially did better at the same time, because we've got a bunch of mind-controlled super spies, I guess, assassins, and they get freed with some mysterious red chemical that looks like magic dust when it explodes, and everyone just pretty much instantly is freed from the chemical retraining. It's very weird. It feels so hokey. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. This happens to Yelena immediately in the movie. They have a target who's got a bunch of these vials, and Yelena manages to get a knife in her belly, twist it, cut it open. But then as like this is ending, the woman on the ground gets her in the leg, I think, with a vial, and it just immediately turns her off from her training. It's like, what the fuck? Oh my God. I don't know. It's so weird. We get to learn about Budapest. They get very specific about Budapest. Apparently, essentially, Clint was on a mission to bring Natasha in, and she defected to S.H.I.E.L.D., and this is what led to her attempting to kill Dreykov. We finally get to find out about it, which is cool. I guess she sucked at getting it done, though. We also get a very last-second tie-in. One of my biggest criticisms with this movie is that it feels so disconnected from everything. It doesn't really feel like it needed to come out after Endgame, and frankly would have been better off to come out before Endgame. They could have done after Infinity War, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it needed to be this late into all of this. The one thing that actually wound up connecting it back together was in the post-credits scene. It's a post-credit scene that ties it all together. Like, at the beginning, Civil War has happened and she's on the run because she violated the Sokovia Accords. Basically, everybody but her and Steve have been captured at this point. And at the end of the movie, she's dyed her hair and she's ready to go off to Infinity War. So, like, cool. It's just an interlude, I guess, but it didn't really need to come out after. And then at the very end, we have Yelena mourning at the grave of Natasha when Val from Falcon and the Winter Soldier shows up. And apparently they already have a rapport. And she's like, I'm going to send you on a mission to kill the one who's responsible for Natasha's death. And it's a picture of Hawkeye. And I was like, that's interesting and unexpected. I also have to wonder what this scene looked like before everything got jumbled up time-wise, because Black Widow was supposed to come out before any of the Disney Plus shows. So I have to wonder if they rewrote the Val scenes on both sides to make this work. I would love to know more about that. But I was like, so does that mean like Yelena is going to be a villain in Hawkeye? And I snooped around, and apparently, yes, Yelena is going to at least appear in Hawkeye. So that's our string out of Falcon the Winter Soldier and back into Hawkeye. It seems like the idea is, rather than do what the previous movies have done, which is tie the movies directly together, at least for now, the plan seems to be the shows are going to tie into a movie, and the movies are going to tie back into the shows. So we've got WandaVision, which seems like it's going to tie into both the Marvels, maybe Ms. Marvel, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We've got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which apparently tied into Black Widow and is also going to tie into Captain America 4. And we've got Loki hasn't really made it clear that it was going to tie into anything yet, but I feel like it's going to tie into What If and maybe Doctor Strange. But now Black Widow is tying into Falcon the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye. So like there's an interesting web where they seem to be trying to, it feels like an intentional choice, have the movies tie into the shows to convince people to watch the shows on Disney Plus, now available for blank-to-blank dollars. Watch the shows, convinces you to go see the movies, spend your money at the theaters. Like, it's not a bad plan. It's just one of those things where you're like, okay, I guess. So, yeah. For a movie that's been low-key in the works for a decade, it doesn't really show. I didn't dislike this movie. I enjoyed it, but I would not go out on a limb to go defending it, and it's certainly got a lot of problems. The movie doesn't feel like it's very well woven into the tapestry of the MCU, which sounds like praise in the sense that a lot of people have been wanting the MCU to like break away from its formula, but like that's not. It just feels like it's a disconnected. It feels like a Star Wars story kind of deal, you know? Like it feels like a spin-off more than it does an actual piece of the overall franchise. As for a rating, I've been going back and forth on this, on what I want to give as a rating, and man, it's really tough for this one because, like, it's tough because I think I want it to be better. I wanted this to be a really big, like, boom, we're back, but it doesn't feel like that. So I don't know. I think I would give this movie. Fuck, man. I think I'm gonna give this movie a 4. That sucks. Yeah. I didn't hate it. I don't even know that I necessarily disliked it. I think I'm more disappointed in it. I think Scarlett Johansson probably deserved a bit better after a decade of service in the MCU. I think the character of Natasha deserved better, but deserved better 5 years ago. And I don't know. Yelena's character is just immediately an assassin again. And hasn't, I don't know. I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to be more. Yeah. That's the thing. Again, it's not like I hated the movie. I think I'm just disappointed in the end result. I think it could have been better. And we'll have to see how the other ones go. I do have high hopes. I think Black Widow also suffers from being one that people are kind of going like, I could skip that, like whatever, because it's a character that's already dead in the MCU. She's already dead. So like, what is the most you could miss? I guess the most you could miss is that Yelena exists. I'm kind of wondering if Val is trying to start the Dark Avengers, essentially, between U.S. Agent, a new Black Widow. Maybe she'll grab Taskmaster and work with her too. I don't know. But I'm kind of wondering if that's a direction that they're planning with this, because it feels like the idea is that there's going to be essentially the Dark Avengers. Julie Louis-Dreyfus, it's nice to see her. She once again really didn't wow me with this character at all. She's just kind of this, I don't know, bitchy, like dark corp, anti-Nick Fury kind of situation. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's what I have to say about this movie. I'm kind of bummed out. I'm glad to have seen another movie in theaters. It's the first movie I've seen since, I think, Sonic the Hedgehog back in February of 2020. So I'm happy to be seeing movies again. Shang-Chi looks like it's going to be good. Doctor Strange looks like it's going to be really good. What are the other ones that are coming up? We got 2 more this year we have 3 more this year, because we have, Shang-Chi is in September. Eternals is in November. I don't know what to expect there at all. And then we've got, for Christmas, we got Spider-Man No Way Home, which I'm very excited about, before Doctor Strange shows up in March. Got a bunch of TV shows coming out, though it looks like we're gonna get What If, and then I don't know what we're going to be getting immediately after that. I haven't looked at it recently. There might be a bit of a break on the TV front. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think of the movie, if you've had a chance to see it. If you watched this review all the way through to the end, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you want to see more of this, you can like and subscribe. I've been doing reviews of the Disney Plus shows. I'm going to be doing the movies as they come out as well. I'd love to hear your feedback on the reviews too. I would love to hear some, constructive criticism on ways I can improve, or if there's things that I'm doing that you like, I'd like to hear that also. Yeah. So I think that's it. I think that's what I got. Hopefully you guys enjoy the movie if you get to go see it. I can't even be like, man, I hope this movie does well so we get more Black Widow, because she's dead. So I don't know. I'm wearing my Black Widowiest shirt. The irony being that this is the logo from the Infinite Crisis video game, which is a DC property. So there's that. Bye.